5 lawmakers are calling for the Justice Department to do a full investigation into the killing of a black man in Clearwater, Florida. Marquise McLaughlin was shot and killed by a white gunman during an argument over a parking spot. The shooter claimed self-defense using the Stand Your Ground law. This is the latest controversy surrounding the law that made national headlines back in 2012.
That is when George Zimmerman shot and killed teenager Trayvon Martin, who was walking unarmed in his Florida neighborhood. Zimmerman was acquitted of murder. The shooting sparked outcry around the country and led to the start of the Black Lives Matter movement. A new documentary series, Rest in Power, the Trayvon Martin Story, looks into the events following that night.
After those 911 tapes were released,
people were outraged and they wanted to know more.
Suddenly, everybody knew who Trayvon Martin was.
Trayvon Martin.
It was like an explosion.
Thousands of Americans are demanding justice.
And the people wouldn't stop.
Tens of thousands of people will be rallying today.
It took my son being shot down to make me stand up.
This is not about a black and white thing. This is about a right and wrong thing.
All right, so we want to note that CBS News did reach out to George Zimmerman for a comment on the docu-series, but he did not reach back to us. On the set now, we are to talk about Rest in Power is Trayvon Martin's father, Tracy Martin. He's also an executive producer of the docu-series, along with filmmaker Jenner Furst and Julia Willoughby Nason. Thanks a lot for joining us, everyone.
Thank you guys for having us.
Tracy, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
This, I know, is probably the worst chapter in your life, and now you are revisiting it. You allowed the world to be present at that time. Why did you want to go back?
We feel it was important as a family. As a father, I felt it was definitely important for us to tell the story of who Trayvon Benjamin Martin truly was. I said it often during the trial. There weren't character witnesses put up to defend his legacy, and so through the docu-series, we feel as though the truth will be told. The flaws in the justice system in the state of Florida will be brought out, and the injustices that are occurring across our country will be brought to light.
Julia and Jenner, you are producing and filming this documentary. You had an incredible, very powerful documentary that came out a few years ago on Kalief Browder, the man who was in Rikers Island for 3 years. It was called Time. Urge our viewers to check that out too on Netflix. But what drew you specifically to this story, Julia?
Well, we had actually just finished Kalief Browder's story last year, so we were in the heat of the moment, just coming off of that. And when we were approached to have the opportunity to direct this story about Tracy's family, we were very honored and just so happy to bring this message to fruition.
Sean Carter approached you after the documentary on Kalief Browder. He saw that, or was he involved in that project?
Yes. Sean Jay-Z Carter was the executive producer of Time, the Kalief Browder Story, and really helped that story reach this sort of audience it needed to. So when we were approached by him for this as a potential directing duo, it was humbling, and we're just very honored to be chosen. This was really Tracy and Sabrina's choice, and we couldn't think of a more important project right now.
The case with Trayvon was covered so widely by, not just media here, but media around the world. You must have wanted to extend the conversation beyond the case. What were you hoping to do with this documentary?
I think that, all you have to do is look at the lead-in to this story. You have Ving Rhames with a red dot on his forehead, an acclaimed actor in his home in Santa Monica. You have Marquise McLaughlin shot in a parking lot and the killer claiming Stand Your Ground. This is not yesterday, this is today. You have an administration that has chosen to equivocate counter-protesters with white supremacist protesters in Charlottesville. We are living in a very frightening time, and I think that for us as white filmmakers, it's very important that that conversation reach all corners of America, and that we can acknowledge that racism is still alive and well, and we need to do something to dismantle it.
Tracy, sorry.
Well, I was going to ask Tracy if it seems like much has changed for you over 6 years, because it doesn't feel like that just covering the news.
I think that within the last 6 years, the change that I've noticed is that now more Americans are open to have the discussion about racism now. But as far as As far as violence associated with racism, nothing has changed. It's we took a turn for the worse.
And Tracy, during the coverage of Trayvon's story, it became increasingly partisan. I mean, there were some people who felt one particular way about it. There were others who felt a completely different way. What do you hope will change with how America thinks about your son, thinks about the events of that night? Is this a way for you and your family, in a way, to correct some of the things that you may have seen that you didn't think were accurate or didn't depict your son the way he actually was?
Yeah, I think this will open up the eyes of America, especially with all of the negative publicity that the killer of our son has been getting as of late. It shows that the jurors didn't view through a mother's eyes the loss, the hurt, the pain, and so the division between white and black in this country has gotten worse and not gotten any close. But this docu-series will help open the eyes to those who feel as though Trayvon was doing something wrong.
And Jenner, did you get a chance in the doc to talk to people who perhaps thought that way, who perhaps thought, look, here's how I feel about this particular subject. It's terrible that a young man lost his life, but, and then they go on to say what they feel. Did you get a chance to get that side?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like, we did over 100 interviews. We amassed over 1,000 hours of footage to make this docu-series, and in our process of doing these interviews, that was usually the first chapter of the interview. But as you begin to walk through it, I think everyone on a human level starts to feel a bit uneasy about what happened.
Interesting.
And everyone on a human level can now use history and can now use the last 6 years as a sense of context of examining this, and can look at the killer's actions since, can look at what's happened to our country, and can look at the way that this was a tragedy and that no one needed to die that night, and race was at the crux of why Trayvon Martin was killed.
And if that is what the documentary shows, did you find during your interview process that the arguments broke down along color lines, or was it, did you find some African Americans who said, yeah, that's tough, but perhaps he, whatever the excuses were, I haven't seen it, but I'm just curious, did it break down cleanly along color lines, or was there some ambiguity?
I think in the beginning it breaks down on color lines, and then when you go deep and you actually give people the time to explain and listen to them, they can talk themselves into some reality that this is not just a black and white thing. This is about a moral issue. Trayvon Martin was not doing anything wrong that night, and I think this series is really going to explore who he was as a person so that people can really see his heart and soul.
I was thinking about you, Tracy, and the fact that this is your son, but now you've had to share him with the world. From everyone else, he's not just a young man that he was to you. He's become a symbol, an icon, and I wonder what that's like for you, that you don't have a choice in the matter.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I'd rather have my son back, and no amount of press coverage or publicity will ever take the place of his loss. But in his death, we know that the work continues. We continue to doing the work. We know that there's a greater purpose, that we can go out and save many other children's lives, and so that's where we're at now, but nothing will ever take the place of his loss.
It's striking that you say that, Tracy. I saw in the images of the documentary a photo of Trayvon alongside Emmett Till, and Emmett Till's family always said the same thing, that they would love to have their loved one back, but he has become, just as Trayvon has, a symbol for racial injustice in this country. And is there a little bit of a silver lining in that for you?
For me, it'll never be a silver.
And I don't mean silver lining, but you know what I'm trying to.
But I think that just to know that his name has galvanized this country, I think that's as a parent that's humbling to me. But at the end of the day, we know that no words or no can express the loss, but the work. We realize that we have to continue doing the work.
Tracy Martin, Jenner Furst, Julia Willoughby, Nason, thank you so much, you guys, for being here, and thank you so much for the documentary. And we're obviously still, grieving over the loss of your son.
Thank you.